Innovators! Welcome to Who's Next, Innovators Edition, powered by the Thurgood Marshall College Fund. I'm your host, Martin G. Martin II, the Senior Program Director of Innovation Entrepreneurship, also known as I&E. The Thurgood Marshall College Fund champions the ambitions of scholars and innovators of HBCUs and PBIs to produce the next generation of top talent. Who's Next Innovators Edition aims to highlight Black entrepreneurs and HBCU innovators through educational and authentic conversations. I'm excited to invite a few of our I&E alum to kick off these conversations, so let's see who's next.
This is Nina Simone, and I have the pleasure to be joined by the MetaScholars program leads, Damian Murray, who is an I&E alum as well as a Schwarzman scholar, as well as Vincent Hunt, who is an entrepreneur and experienced architect. Welcome, welcome, welcome. How are you two feeling today?
Extraordinary.
Great, amazing. It feels great to sit next to you two, for sure.
Yep.
I'm super excited about this. For me, it's super full circle for me to have met both of you 3 years ago at the pitch, and then present day to be at the pitch 2022 now.
Yeah, facts.
Are we excited? How we feeling?
We're super excited. We just wait because we know you're gonna bring the heat in. So we're just
waiting because me and him can get real energetic real quick, especially when it comes to MetaScholars and everything that we want to build inside of TMCF. So just waiting for the.
I was gonna say I would love for our viewers and audience to even know what is MetaScholars.
Wow, that's a good question. You gonna tackle?
I think Vince tells his story the best, and he adds so much colorful color around the narrative that I think he would probably be the best one to showcase it, and then I'll add any further details.
Gotcha.
So MetaScholars, to kind of give the origin story of MetaScholars and why we think it's so important. I think it's important to kind of understand why we would even take such a big leap into the metaverse and create a program around, learning, skills acquisition, and development. So it was probably about 6 months ago now.
Yeah.
We started talking to Tamara Kai Perry, TKP is what we call her. She's our general, about the importance of really getting ahead of what we call the meta divide.
Yeah.
Yep.
To break that down, if you think about the current digital divide, it's happened for a long time. So if you think about our transition from Web 0 to Web 1, right? It's a gap, right? Where people of color generally fall behind. New technologies come, we don't get on the front end, we fall behind. And then time goes on and we're trying to catch up. So that's what happened when you had Web 0 to Web 0.1, right? 1. But then you had from 1 to 2, which then in turn increased the gap. But again, just by measure, because we went from a write web to like the social web, or Web 2.0, a gap. But now here we are at another epic moment in time where technology is about to make a huge leap from Web 2 to Web 3.
Yeah.
But no longer is it a gap like this, it's like this. I compare it to, it's huge. It's like the difference between like a city block and a whole city. Because not only is it just minor changes to the way we use the web, there's a whole new language, there's whole economic systems, there's a lot that's happening in Web 3 in the blockchain alone. Just that technology all by itself is really complicating things. So if we were getting left behind in the very first 2 iterations, this iteration is going to be Herculean in size. So with that understanding, we were talking to TKP about this. We said, we got to get ahead of this.
Yeah.
If we're going to forge the way for future technologists, innovators, creators, entrepreneurs, we need to start thinking about how we're going to prepare them, how we're going to ready them.
Yeah.
And so she heard us, and then she went away as TKP does, and she did her research, and she came back fired up. Okay, Vince, you got to tell us more about this thing. You got to tell us. And Damien's just sitting there like, let's go.
Research ready and loaded, right?
Research ready and loaded. And then all of a sudden she came back to us and she said, we got the green light to do a pilot called the MetaScholars, which is programming within Thurgood Marshall College Fund to start to ready and prepare the next generation of technologists for the Web3 world that we're going into. So MetaScholars is deeply important. I've been part of the Metaverse since 2005. So for me, it's a huge full circle to say, I envision a time where we go from 2-dimensional web to 3-dimensional, and we're living in spaces and places versus just on web pages.
Yeah.
And to be able to do it in this capacity with such a big meaning and purpose is such great work. So that's the genesis and where we are with the MetaScholars.
You gonna say something?
Yeah, because I definitely want to add a few little things. That was great.
I have a few follow-ups. Go ahead, Damian.
To explain that. And I guess I would just want to bring in that student perspective, because I know that that us as students, we're always yearning to learn more about the new technologies. And I just want to highlight some of our students that came to our competitions on Zoom in the virtual landscape, and we're coming up with these Web 3.0 ideas. And I think it's so important for TMCF to continuously invest in these type of technologies, because we want to build the next Black founders, right? We want to be a part of that movement. And I think it's so important for us all to be a part of this journey and to get to do it with TMCF alongside Vince, who's been my mentor for a long time. It's truly been a special experience for me, especially coming from the side of a student and now in the teacher role. But I always say, and as Vince says, it's always each one teach one.
Yeah.
So we learn just as much from the scholars as we do ourselves. And so it's been a wonderful experience in that regard as well.
No, you're hitting it right on the nail, Damian. Even for me, coming to the pitch in 2019, that was my first exposure to technology, me even exploring the idea of venturing into tech, because I made a career pivot of wanting to be in a corporate space to wanting to transition to tech, but it's because of programs, especially like them. I wish I was in the MetaScholars. But I definitely wanted to know, Vince or Damian, even if you could take a deeper dive of even explaining the difference between Web 3 and Web 2, because a lot of this might be the first time our audience is even hearing that. If you could just highlight or share briefly on that.
I'll let Vince touch on that too, because he's a great at explaining these at the most simplest level.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you think about Web 2, when you think about social web, at the core of that is centralization. Let's just take it to that point. So if you think about platforms that we have right now, whether it be Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of them are centralized companies, right? Our actions, our behaviors, the content, the information that we share on these platforms is all centralized content. And as we know, we use that for like advertising and all kinds of other stuff, right? Well, what Web3 suggests is we're going to decentralize it, where now all of a sudden it's not about any one central ownership. It's about everyone owning their own content.
Gotcha.
And what makes this powerful is blockchain technology, because at this point, we're able to own our content in ways that we never have been before. So that's kind of the premise. But it goes even further than that, because we can get into like the depths of like tokenomics, cryptonomics. It's like the collision of all these technologies that we've heard now coming into a perspective that gives us more control and a permissionless web, that we really have creative freedom, entrepreneurial freedom in ways that we haven't had before. While gatekeepers were being eliminated in other iterations of the web, now there are zero gatekeepers, right? And so in that, there's this expansive opportunity for us to create new business models. I think it was Nipsey Hussle, right? I got to bring this up because I like to talk because it brings it all home, where Nipsey Hussle was saying with blockchain technology and crypto, cryptonomics and tokenomics, the new iteration of business will be completely new business models. And we're seeing that. NFTs, non-fungible tokens. We're seeing artists release their albums in the form of NFTs, no longer needing record labels. Snoop Dogg gets brave. He buys Death Row Records and said it'll be the very first NFT record label. So in the space of Web3, it's really about a greater sense of ownership, because we have more power and more control, not only of our information, but the economic mechanics that go behind that. Right? We can write and create whatever we want in the digital context, which we both know scales tremendously. So Web3 is just a completely new iteration of how we will leverage web technologies moving forward.
Gotcha. Well, thank you for that. And I would love to know, because you touched on it a bit earlier, Vince, in regards to this is going to be a digital divide.
It's going to be a meta divide.
This
time it's going to be a meta divide. We have to own that, because when we think about the digital divide was tough. It was hard. I use the word Herculean when I say like the meta divide, because the meta divide, I have a friend, matter of fact, he was on an earlier podcast. He's worked with you guys, Hodge Flemings. Hodge Flemings is a mentor of mine. He's been in the game as long. We met on MySpace.
Yep.
And like some of the audience probably have never even seen MySpace, old school social media, right? We're on MySpace. We met each other. And I was telling him, we really need to start to embrace Web3. We got to get in. We got to get in. Why? Because it's the next iteration.
Okay. Yep.
We don't want to get left behind. I'm sitting here talking about like the meta divide. I'm not going to get stuck in the meta divide, right? And so for a time, he's like, Vince, I hear you. I hear you. I got on a call with him and his wife and some other colleagues of ours. We talked about Ethereum and buying digital real estate. Yep. By the time we got off that call, his wife was like, Vince, I pulled the trigger. I got 4 ETH, right? So she made moves. But it wasn't until just a few months ago that Haj decided to jump in.
Yeah.
When he jumped in, he called me like a week later, frazzled, like, Vince, I feel like I'm relearning everything. Yeah. Now, this is a pioneer of the web, right? He's been in the game years.
Yeah.
And then you get to this point where you feel like you have to relearn everything.
But
now,
we are, though. We
are.
Imagine this. Imagine if you haven't been keeping up until that point.
But you're hitting it on the nail, and even you two being of different generations.
Yeah.
To share that perspective, how do we encourage and motivate or pull along? Sometimes we might have to pull along our generation of people to be interested, to seek the knowledge, to get participate. If you would share.
Yeah, so I can definitely share on that. So one of the interesting things that I've been doing is really communicating to people that, hey, nobody is a subject matter expert right now on this topic. If they say they are, they could be, but in all actuality, there's so much to learn.
Right.
Everybody's learning every day. And so the interesting component is now that you're seeing youth, so me, also working with Vince, and we're both teaching each other at the same time and bringing each other into the space.
Yeah.
And so what I've done is reached out to people that are business leaders and started to have them think about, okay, what if I did this NFT for my business? What could that look like? How could it alter the economics of my business and generate income? What if I did a DAO? What does that look like? What if I just bought some Ethereum? What does that look like for me? And I think having those conversations around some of these topics are really, really important. Even if it's just as simple as putting an Oculus or MetaQuest on your face and dropping you in.
It's changing so rapidly.
Exactly. It's changing so rapid. So just putting a MetaQuest on your face and dropping you in. And those type of experiences are amazing because people get it right away. And then once you get it, it's not a space where you can have your toe dipped into. You either in or you out.
Yeah.
And people don't really understand it until they actually fully get in. And so I'm excited about the opportunity to keep teaching and leveraging this technology because I definitely think it's going to be here for the foreseeable future, no matter how it shakes out and how we want to use it.
I agree. And
I think I've got to add that there's an interesting dynamic. Me being a senior experience designer, technologist, there's something magical. I've got to say this, that happens when you take somebody like myself that's been in this thing for 2.5 decades, right? And you combine that with the energy and curiosity and genius of like somebody like a Damian. I'm not trying to blow him up, but like
it's the collaboration. It's the
but what he brings to the table. So for me, I've been seasoned for a long time. So there's a lot of convictions and ideas that I have in my head, a bunch of context that I have. And all I've got to do is throw something at Damian. He's like, no. And he'll break it down. He'll like dismantle it. And it's violent, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, but I thought and I believed. He's like, no. Yeah. And it's very simple for him because he's at a place in his career and his development where he's like this sponge that's just understanding it. Because he doesn't have a whole bunch of stuff to sift through. Like he didn't see a lot of the stuff that I saw that's like, that's going against that idea. Yeah. He's like, no, that's the way it is, Vince. Right. And I'm like, my man, and in that other colleagues of mine have said, Vince, you're blessed because you do have a Damian. Yeah. I'm saying all that to say this. If there's other senior technologists or other people that are out there that are listening to this that fit my demographic, like that 49-year-old, dinosaur salesman.
No.
Then you've got to pair yourself up with the energy, right? The new energy that will forge an extraordinary new future, right? You got to do that, right? It's going to bless you. It's going to take you to a completely new level.
And And I would just add, because first of all, thank you so much. Like,
Oh,
it's been
bless.
such a pleasure to work with you throughout this entire time. But one of the amazing things that I can rely on as a person that is younger is I can rely on Vince's expertise because he's seen Web 1, Web 2, and now Web 3. So he can showcase and identify the opportunities and pinpoints in the movement of the revolution and tell me like, hey, this is what happened then. I see it happening again. Damian, you need to do this, this, and this, and this, and get ready.
Yeah.
And so that preparation and really understanding that has been like a godsend for me, because now it's like I'm setting myself up to be a part of the movement, right? And I don't want to be passive at this time because I wasn't able to be around during Web 2 or Web 1. So how can I really take advantage of this to use to my betterment, whether it be career or just opportunities in general? So I'm thankful to have Vince just because it helps me in my learning process and really understanding history. Because if you don't know history, how can you really move forward, right?
That's a good one. Damian, you were touching a bit on different pinpoints. You were speaking about Ethereum.
Yep.
Ethereum. Thinking into different NFT projects.
Yep.
For our viewers, if this is their first time ever even hearing about the metaverse, and of course there's different worlds to explore, different NFTs, different cryptocurrencies, what are some tangible projects or tangible areas that they should explore? Because even you were sharing that no one's a subject matter expert, but this is a chance for them to become that leading Black founder in that space. So you guys would share on that.
Yeah, I think I don't know if Vince might agree with me on this one, but I think the NFTs are probably one of the easiest things for somebody to get into for a few different reasons, right? Really, in my opinion, NFTs are just digital art that are on the blockchain and verified. I know people get lost in the JPEGs and it's a picture and all these different things, but these NFTs offer value and utility based on whoever designed it, right? And depending on how rare they are, the more value they could have. So essentially, I kind of think of them as an ability to be a store of value. And you can make NFTs of anything, virtual real estate, pictures like people do, Twitter posts, pretty much anything you can think of can be an NFT. But in my opinion, you can go on and see the Bored Apes. You can see what some of these projects are doing and join some of these communities. Because I think what we haven't really mentioned is that Web3 is a community-oriented space, right? And the more that you're a part of these communities, the more you're going to get tangled up in everything that is involved with it and the experience. So the more power for the community, the more power for the NFT. And like I was talking to somebody downstairs, like I think NFTs can be applied to tickets. So just verifying that you were actually at this location or give you ability or access to attend an event.
Okay.
And you're already starting to see people think that way, but that's one of the first use cases that I think most people will come in contact with. And then I'll pass it off to Vince because I know he might have a few more that'll be good for people just to kind of get their feet into it.
Yeah. So most def, when you think about what I love about NFTs and the whole NFT movement, there was a period of time, probably over the last decade, 10 years, it was this whole conversation around the creative economy. Right? So when you think about the creative economy, which lived, again, in a centralized world, right? Where there was still a lot of gatekeepers and a lot of things that creatives had to go through to monetize their art. So for instance, if you think about the traditional sense of a piece of art, right? You have the piece of art, you do it, it's cool. You sell it to someone else. Let's say you sell it to someone else for, let's say, $3,000, the piece of art. That collector that got that piece of art would hold that piece of art. And then ultimately, as that artist gained fame, they could resell it for $100,000. But remember, the starving artist made $3,000 when he actually sold that piece of art. What NFTs allow artists to do is create their art, mint it to the blockchain, sell it as an NFT, write the smart contract that governs what happens to this art as it moves along the blockchain. They could actually write royalties into the piece of art. So for instance, I could sell
multiple streams of income
for the artist.
For the artist, right?
Because the artist now all of a sudden sells the piece of artwork for $3,000. Later it gets sold for $100,000. They make a percentage of that sale in perpetuity forever, as long as it's passing hands. So now we start thinking about repositioning artists in the space, right? And being able to truly take advantage of the creative economy. NFTs is just one of those mechanisms. Another look at NFTs. NFTs also provide utility. I think everybody has heard of like the Bored Apes.
Yeah.
Right? When the Bored Apes first popped off, I think you could get like a Bored Ape for like $1,500, maybe less. Now Bored Apes are selling for $200,000, $300,000.
Oh.
Then people will say, and this is what really gets under my skin. I'm hoping like this gets out broad, so I don't have to keep saying this.
Let them know.
Because people will say, why would you spend $300,000 for a JPEG that you can click and copy until you know?
Yeah.
It's not that. You can do that all day. Yes, you can.
Yes.
But what you cannot copy is the smart contract that governs that Bored Ape.
Yep.
That smart contract is now sitting in your digital collection, in your wallet, verifiable by the blockchain. What the Bored Apes is doing strategically is creating basically an elite club. And in that elite club, they're unlocking to the holders of these Bored Apes the world's treasures, the cool stuff. I said, well, make somebody understand what a Bored Ape is. I was checking into a resort. I was in Orlando. I went there for a day trip. Like, I wanted to go eat at the restaurant. Beside the point.
Right.
I'm standing in, about to check in. While I'm checking in, it hit me. One day, I'm going to be checking into a resort, and the woman in front of me is going to say, I'm a Bored Ape. And they're going to just pass her through the line and give her every benefit of the resort.
Kind of like when you're checking that out.
Special
Import.
privilege.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Privilege.
Yeah.
Special privileges.
So while a bunch of people run around talking about JPEGs, people who get it, they're saying, we're tokenizing the world.
And this buys me access.
This buys me access.
Nike's doing it now.
Decentralizing.
Adidas is doing it now.
So you got to like, I'm telling people, if you're not getting like educated, imagine a world where you don't even know how to spend money because the economic system has changed on you.
Yep. What do they
You
do?
think financial literacy, right? You think financial literacy is a problem now? We can't even get the fiat currency system right.
Yeah.
What happens when a completely new system comes? And we just dismissed it as JPEGs.
But that's why programs like the MetaScholars
are so
important in educating and expanding and pushing our Black scholars to be the leaders and knowledgeable in these spaces.
I could not agree more. I think, Vince, if you could talk about the concept that John Delia came up with, so we got to give him credit for.
John,
that,
we got to give
Yeah.
That really blew my mind when you talk about those economic systems. He was like, they went and hid an economic system behind a video game.
Boom. Drop the mic.
It dropped the mic.
We can just end the podcast now on that.
And he basically described it as, hey, he's a real estate investor, mogul in his own right. And he was basically like, I had my friend just calling me up like, hey, like you need to get into this. You need to get into this. You need to join these metaverses.
Okay.
We're building. There's virtual real estate. All this. He's like, why would I even play with this video game for other people? Why would I purchase this JPEG? Why would I do this? It doesn't make any sense. We've always grown up not being told not to play video games because people that play video games don't make any money. But now all of a sudden, people that play video games now are making money.
Yeah.
And he basically was like, from his own indoctrination into never playing video games, he almost missed the economic opportunity.
But we got to go to the seedy part of this. And I'm not afraid of this at all, right?
Yeah, go there.
Like, as I was growing up, it was said, like, you would hear it where they would say, if you don't want people of color to know something, put it in a book.
Yeah.
Then we started reading. Then they said, okay, if you don't want them to know something, put it on the internet. Digital divide, right?
Yep.
But then we jumped in, we started reading that content.
Yep.
If you don't want them to know something, put it deeper in the web, right? So now you've got, of course, a whole submersive culture of the web. We started getting into that too.
Yeah.
But watch this. The most immersive way that they've done it at this point is say, now you got to understand where the cryptonomics, tokenomics, and all this come from.
Yep.
It comes from the tech community. Most tech nerds are into gaming.
Yeah, they are.
So they said, okay, we'll just put it behind the game. They'll never get it from behind the game. They'll always call it a game. And they've been playing the games
For a while now.
for years. And we're just getting in the game. And they're like, oh, dang, they playing the games now, right? But up under the games are complete economic systems where billions of dollars are exchanging hands every single day.
Yeah.
And we're still on the outside because I look like an avatar. It's a game. It's not a game.
It's not a game.
It's not a game.
It's a serious matter.
We do deals as avatars.
Yeah.
For real. And people have to wake up, right? And when they wake up, it's like, okay, I see where we're going. Even if you think about it generationally.
Yeah.
Like, I have this firm belief that every generation is built for its generation. We have a whole generation of children that come up on games. So by the time they get there, it'll be just as natural as them playing their games.
Yep.
Yeah.
We're standing in an epic moment.
Yep.
And if we don't take the veils off our own eyes, we're gonna miss it.
So even speaking into that, because I know there's the development of the metaverse, there's the development of these programs. Would you, and this is an education piece, do people have to be technology knowledgeable? Like, do I have to be an expert coder? Do I have to, because our viewers, they don't know. Are they having to be, I don't know, C+, Java? Like, do they have to know these things? No.
No, not at all. Not at all. I think that, you want to hit on this?
Yeah, I think the metaverse and Web3 can touch everybody, right? No matter what it is. And it's so interesting to me because even coders are now having to learn how to code Solidity, right? To work on the Ethereum blockchain, which is a whole new thing, right? And so everybody's constantly adapting, and there's a position for everybody. Like we said, there's a position for the real estate person that wants to be a developer in the metaverse. There's a position for the designer that wants to build museums and cathedrals and all these places in the metaverse. There's a position for the business person who just wants to make a store and sell his items. And there's also a position for the artist. So all you have to do is have an insatiable desire to learn and grow in the space, and the opportunities will open up. And like one of the great things that I've done and Vince has done by working with the MetaScholars program is we brought in so many strategic partners,
Wow.
Black people that are doing amazing things in this space, and they're out there. And so if you do your research and you make sure that you connect, because it's all about community, more often people are always willing to step back, lend a hand, and bring you into the space, because like we said, we want to make sure nobody is left behind.
Correct.
And so I just want to reiterate that it doesn't matter where you're coming from. This space is wide open for you to join, right?
Yeah. Facts. Like, again, I think and Damian hit it so eloquently, like, you got to have an insatiable, like, desire to learn. And for me, I have to say, even, again, break old convictions in your head so you can take advantage of it. I think I came at an advantage because in 2005, when I first started exploring the metaverse, it was on a platform called Second Life, old school. Yeah, so I was in Second Life. Quick story, I go into Second Life. I'm like, what are all these avatars doing walking around? But I saw commerce. I saw people buying and selling digital goods in a virtual world for Linden dollars. Yep. So I took my little debit card, connected it to the platform, took my US currency, converted it into Linden dollars, started buying stuff. In the first month, I think I spent $2,000. I done bought houses, land, all kind of stuff. I was a buyer, right? But then I realized, I was like, wait a minute. If $2,000 left me, it went somewhere. I'm an entrepreneur. I need to flip that. Right. So I said, what am I going to do in here? So I actually started one of the very first full-fledged design studios, graphic design and branding studios inside of Second Life called Satori Spire Studios. I had a team of designers from all over the world. We all met in world. I had a whole building in world. We would meet in offices, get clients. Yeah, we would build logos and everything in the world. The thing that I brought to the table, and again, this talks to, like, where do you get in? Do you have to be a coder? I can't code nothing. I can't code myself out of a box if you told me to. I don't code. I'm a designer, right? So I had people who could code. I'm smart enough to go get the people who can code. But the way we flipped the model inside of Second Life is you found that people that were in world were selling things for like 5 and 10 lindens. Because to them, it's like, okay, this is like an in-world game and I'm doing this part-time. I said, no, I'm trying to eat.
Right.
I'm trying to eat. So I'll be like, if I'm charging $500 to $1,000 for a logo in the physical world, I'll charge $250 to $500 inside here. Yeah. So I think our studio was the very first one to say it costs $1 million linden for you to get this. But I never forgot there was a human being connected on the other side of those linden dollars. They did the math and it was like, okay, that's like $250. But we was getting banked.
You were getting a lot of money, and you touching on that, I would love to know, because even in entrepreneurship, that's always our goal, to make profit, to expand, to grow. Would love to hear if it has happened in the metaverse or even in your personal experience about some losses or even challenges you might have experienced.
Well, I definitely got a course correct. I think my ethos tells me that as an entrepreneur, my first job isn't just to make money. My job is to create opportunities. So let me context set that, right? So as long as I'm creating jobs and creating opportunities for other people, I think I'm doing my duty as an entrepreneur. Oh, by the way, I'll make money.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? If I'm doing that well. Right. So I definitely want to context set that. But funny enough, I'm gonna tell the story about the E&S drop. Okay, so it's my birthday. I get an E&S drop. And not just because it was my birthday.
What's E&X?
So the E&S name service is like when you go purchase your domain name, like if you were to buy ninasimone.eth,
okay,
you would buy from the E&S name service. Well, the E&S name service is a decentralized company that's selling these .eth domains. And because it's a decentralized company, and the nature and the spirit of Web3 is about community. Okay. Company equals community. So instead of keeping all the profits to themselves, they said, what we're going to do is if you were holding a domain name from us, you believed in us, we're going to give you free E&S tokens. They gave me 14,000 free E&S tokens. These tokens added up to be I think $15,000
of real
US dollars. They just dropped it in my wallet, right? Everybody on the internet is going nutty, right? Like, oh my God, did you get part of the E&S drop? It's my birthday. I let it sit there for 2 days. I'm still kind of blown away. On the third day, I'm like, I want to switch my E&S tokens into ETH tokens. When I was trying to switch the E&S tokens to ETH tokens, Ethereum tokens, there's a platform that you use called Uniswap. It's the end of the day. I'm tired. Google Uniswap. Boom. I pull up Uniswap. I drop in how many tokens I want to transfer. I'm talking to the little customer service chatbot. Yep, you're doing it right. You're doing it right. Yeah. I'm doing it. I do the exchange. E&S tokens go out. Nothing comes in. Back. Yep. And I'm waiting.
Is it the 24-hour bank account?
In minutes.
Until business day?
No. It's supposed to happen automatically on the chain. And I'm waiting. I got back in that chat box and I was like, something doesn't feel right. No answer. Now, before that, they were answering fast. No answer. And I was like, I kind of feel like this is a scam.
Yeah.
The person on the other end was like, it is. Sorry, you lost your E&S. And the whole site went down. I had just lost $15,000 in a matter of 10 minutes. So why is Vince telling this story?
Wow.
Because of decentralization and because there are no central authorities, hacking and all these things are running rampant. So you got to be careful. After I did that transaction, I looked up at the URL. It wasn't uniswap.org. It was Uniswap something. And I was like, oh, somebody created
the scam likely's calling us.
They basically created a site that looked like Uniswap with the interface that looked like Uniswap for me to just transact and just send them my money one way.
What about you, Damian?
I don't have any stories like that where I've lost money like that. Trying to keep it. I've been learning from Vince. But
that's why the cross collaboration is important. It's so important. And being able to expand your community because people that have been in this space can provide that insight.
Yeah.
It was funny because Vince actually helped me set up my ENS. Okay. And then while I was doing the transaction, he was like, hold on, let me make sure. Because I didn't been got before. So I've heard this story a few times, but I think that just speaks to the MetaScholars program, right? Yeah. Because we also want people to go into the space, but we want them to do it safely.
Yes.
Right. And that's why it's so important to have these conversations because Vince could have easily been like, as soon as that happened, oh, I'm done with that Web3. I'm done with everything. I'm not doing this, right? But he's not doing that because he's brave. Mm-hmm. He knows that's a loss, but he's going to make more on the back end. But a lot of people, they lose that money. It's they're out, right? And we got to be very cognizant that people have to understand how to really get into these spaces safely, but then also ensure that they have the right and correct information.
Yeah.
Right. And so I've had my struggles because I do think there is a large onboarding process throughout the whole entire process
into the metaverse,
into the metaverse, and the MetaQuest, into any blockchain technology, purchasing your first NFT, buying crypto on all these different exchanges. What is a wallet? There is a huge onboarding process. It's painful. And so it's so important that we start to guide each other through these processes so we can all be on the same page. And so thank you, Vince, for sharing that story, because I think it's an important one, and it's an important lesson for everybody to learn, because you can't rely on central authorities anymore. Yeah. It's up to you to make sure you have your encrypted keys and know if your wallet is a hot wallet or a cold wallet or not.
I think
simple as that.
And to your point, I think it's a re-educating of financial literacy, but in the digital space, because the same way I know my Bank America app, I'm checking it every day to make sure.
But you know what? It's funny because he says the word lesson, and I'm sitting here and I'm milling, because like people say, well, Vince, how can you be so like enthusiastic that you lost $15,000? I'm a very optimistic person. And I was like, oh my God, I just spent $15,000 for my Web3 scam degree. I just invested $15,000 into, you know what I'm saying? So I got the certification on scams. It cost me $15K, but I can guarantee you I'm way up. Like my knowledge on like scams and how they can happen is way up. And I'm almost thankful, right, that I did that early in the game. And on that sum of money, yes, that is a nice sum of money, but it was, remember, I got it dropped to me for free. So it's almost like the ENS name service like gave me a degree in scams. Right. I look at it in that context, right? And I am super optimistic because I know this is where we should be.
I agree.
That would have never, ever made me pivot.
I agree. Ever. But I think even to your point, Vincent, you are highlighting a key aspect of entrepreneurship, that you have to take a risk. You
Absolutely.
have to. You have to. And I would love to hear in both of you guys' experience and being entrepreneurs, what is some advice to our fellow entrepreneurs that are listening in? Like if they are, whether they're launching their first business ever, they're thinking about pivoting into entrepreneurship, because I know you guys are a little bit experts here.
Students of the game.
Students of the game.
Students of the game. But what advice would you give?
I would say that my first thing I would say is never build alone, right? Okay. I think sometimes as entrepreneurs, we think we have to build everything ourselves, but you'll always go faster with people and organizations and partnerships.
Yes.
And thinking about them critically about how you can really add value to these organizations from being outside of it. Because like Vince knows, especially in Web3, there are so many organizations trying to actively learn how to navigate them, right? So they're looking for consultants or people that can upskill their workforce so they can understand it properly. So really thinking about, okay, if I'm going to set up this business or I'm going to do this project, who are the key partners that I can utilize that are in my direct network to help launch this and make this successful? I think if you go it alone, you'll oftentimes be slow and inefficient. And as Vince knows, we're all about efficiency over here. So to be able to do the MetaScholars program at TMCF as a strategic partner and launching this program has been such a blessing for me and him, just because we're able to really impact people in a way that we never thought we could before and introduce this technology.
Yeah. Thank you, Dean.
Absolutely. What, dibs on like being an entrepreneur?
Entrepreneur, yeah.
Yeah, I'm old school on that. Like, I think, and thanks for that, Damian. That's so super dope. Like, that blessed me. But like, when I think about entrepreneurship, I think about, one, self-awareness, right? I think we're living in a time where we put capes on entrepreneurs, and it's like, that's the super thing to become, an entrepreneur. But I'm also first to tell you, you know, as a seasoned entrepreneur, that it's not for everybody. I was in military 91 through 95, and I can promise you this, and I've said it 1,000 times, like, you ain't gonna catch me jumping out of airplanes into a battle. I love my country, no jokes. I do, right. But I'm not doing that part.
But you're playing.
The thought of that gives me PTSD, right? I'm self-aware, so I did intelligence, right? I went into a lane where I could serve, but I went into my lane, right? Yeah. And so I say that to say this. Anybody that's thinking about entrepreneurship, like, get really, really honest with yourself and really, really clear with yourself. I'm not saying that you're not creative or you're not innovative or you don't have great ideas or you can't build business models. I'm not saying any of that, because you may be an entrepreneur.
And what's
and
that?
Not an entrepreneur is somebody that has entrepreneurial tendencies, but have a like their threshold for like risk and like all the real brutal things that really happen that we don't talk about, and entrepreneurship scares them. Like it makes them literally like sick and panic. You may not be set up to go do that.
Right.
But you can lean into your entrepreneurial spirit as it pertains to wanting to create, wanting to innovate, build some business models. Go into a company that rewards that and be that. Yeah. The world is looking for entrepreneurs, right? How about it? Right? I want to put capes on. I want Entrepreneur Magazine. Like we have very little resources for entrepreneurs. And this is why I love organizations like Thurgood Marshall. Yep. Thurgood Marshall College Fund not only embraces the entrepreneur, but they also embrace the entrepreneur. Yep.
Yeah.
And I see the love going both ways, right? They're building the next generation like superstars across both domains.
Yep.
And so it's easy for me to find like a sense of place here because I can have both of those conversations, and I know both of those conversations will be appreciated and heard, right? Yep. And respected. Don't be like Vince. If you're feeling like willy-nilly over here about taking that risk, go work at that corporation and add value and build. One day you might get them guts to jump out there and fight there. You know what I'm saying? But have self-awareness.
Yep.
Self-awareness, I think, is the key element that really separates great entrepreneurs from not so great entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs. It's just being aware of yourself.
Yep.
So that's what I appreciate.
Dropping gems.
I appreciate it.
Gems. So we love to ask our guests, in their opinion, who do you believe is next? Who's next in your opinion? Damian, I'll start with you first.
Who is next? Can you define like in what way?
In your industry, in entrepreneurship, in the metaverse. Who is a trailblazing leader?
Man.
You can ponder upon it too.
I'm a ponder upon it, but I'm gonna shout out one of my MetaScholars.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Because I've had a chance to work with him for a long time now, probably for the past 2 years, and like every time I'm just amazed with the stuff he builds. And so I'm gonna shout out Lance Davis. So he's a recent NCAT graduate, North Carolina A&T. He's a part of the inaugural cohort of the MetaScholars. He's actually building a Web3 startup right now called Minute. And he just did an event in partnership with Andreessen Horowitz, who sponsored the event at his school, his local community, at NCAT, where it was in the metaverse and in the real world.
Yeah.
So I highlight him because I always see in him the ability to think critically, but then also go out and do it, right? A lot of stuff he does is not just the textbooks. It's the stuff that he does in the real world and the way he connects and creates relationships that is really powerful. And so that just goes to show you, especially with our MetaScholars program, we invest in the best and the brightest. And they're not only building in real life, but they're building in world. And so I love to give that example. We have 12 MetaScholars, honestly, and all of them are great, but that's just one story I would like to share.
Thank you, Damian.
Since he took him off the table, you know what I'm saying? Like, no, I've got to, like, honestly, and I was sitting here meditating on this, and I've got to say, like, Damian Murray.
Damian.
No, this is why I say this, right? Yeah. I've known Damian for quite some time, and I've watched Damian as he's grown and evolved through Thurgood Marshall programming, and just watching him and his discipline. I've never met a person in his category, in his age group, as disciplined and practical as he is.
Yeah.
Like me and him are like good cop, bad cop. When I'm like in the class, like, we can do all things. Also, Damian says, Vince, okay, and he operationalizes everything, and he's very disciplined. But above and beyond that, his playful nature lives in his curiosity.
It does.
He be unpacking stuff, and I'm like, all right, teach me something else, Damian.
Yeah.
And so while he's moving through this course of life, and at this stage, he said one thing to me that let me know that he's like very blow up. He said, Vince, I found my niche. And I know what that feels like. And when he said that, the work from that moment on turned up like 10 times.
Turn it
so
up.
when I say who's next, he's going to be next. And I think the work that he's going to put in the earth over the next decade is going to be profound. I think when we look at the timeline of technology and the history of where things are going, there's going to be a line, and it's going to say Damian Murray, and under it, it's going to talk about learning, skills acquisition, and all the stuff.
Yeah.
It's going to say that, right? So say he's next.
How awesome.
How awesome, especially to get that from Mr. Vincent Hunt, like himself, the the architect himself. So thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And what I've been saying all weekend, Nina Simone can also feel my energy on this, is that we really stand on the shoulders of giants.
Yes.
And I'm so grateful to have this opportunity to speak with you all and work with one of my greatest mentors of all time, hands down, and be a part of this mission of the Thurgood Marshall College Fund. And I'm so connected to TMCF in my heart that it's irreplaceable. So I'm excited, and hopefully me and you can continue to go on this journey together as we build for the future me's and Lance Davis's and TMCF scholars.
Yeah, I was talking to the founder, Dr. Payne, just on yesterday, and just sitting with her really reminds me of what hooked me back 2016, right? Because I remember meeting her then. I was like, I just want to sit in the midst of wisdom and power. You know what I'm saying? Real selfish, like I just want to be in it. And it stuck. It stuck at a very deep, ethereal place within me that this is the work I'm supposed to do, right? So I've done tons of entrepreneurial pursuits, and I'm only piggybacking on just the legacy work that we're doing with Thurgood Marshall College Fund. To be able to be a part of Thurgood Marshall timeline and saying we pioneered and championed into the Metaverse, into Web3, this next iteration of technology with strong groups of young people with big minds and big hearts, is really, really powerful for me, again, as a senior entrepreneur and technologist. And so it's I would be remiss if I didn't mention, the giants that I sit amongst even, right? And I just hope that one day I can spill just a little bit of the juice, on the generation following. So I appreciate you, Nina, for even popping off and making sure that these stories are told.
No, I appreciate you two for being willing to share here, because for me, it's been super exciting to work alongside both of you, to have prior to in 2019 and then 2022 for this all to come full circle.
It's been amazing.
I can't even describe it. It just feels like legacy.
Yeah,
it feels like it's supposed to happen.
Yeah.
So I appreciate both you, Damian and Vince, for sharing more about yourselves.
Cool.
And I thank you.
Thank you.
But would love for our viewers to stay in tune and tapped in with each of you. So if you could share where they could connect with you or follow you and stay up to date.
So all throughout Web 2, I'm Damian J. Murray at Damian J. Murray. And all throughout Web 3, I'm at Damian J. Murray.
Yeah, for me, all in Web 2 at Vincent Hunt. And then in Web 3, VincentHunt.eth, of course.
Yep.
You can find me in Etherscan. See me out there hustling. If you want to see my record, see what I'm doing on the ledger, I'm out there in that way. But yeah, you can connect with me at Vincent Hunt across all platforms.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Who's Next? Innovators Edition.